here?
A few, I believe, and more may be coming in, and I'll be watching for that. So if it pops up, you can just leave it.
Okay, I don't know if Judge Fisher and Whitney and David are here.
They are not. Do you think I should give it a few more moments?
Yeah, I can try to shoot them an email, but I don't want to mess up my screen again.
Fair enough. I'll just.
Yeah, and I think the students can like interrupt me and ask me questions, and then they can ask the judge questions too.
Perfect.
And we can do that.
Great. So I'll just do a quick introduction and then I'll let you have the floor.
Okay.
Welcome everyone to Metropolitan State University's Institute for Community Engagement and Scholarship workshop today. We annually invite over 1,500 youth to our St. Paul campus, and the youth campus visits have become widely popular, and we get visits from schools expanding across the metro, which is very exciting. And of course, due to the pandemic, we have switched to a digital format, and we are providing pre-recorded workshops with activities and pre-recorded campus tours and materials for teachers and schools. We're very happy to host this live workshop today and looking forward to doing more of them in the future. A few Zoom housekeeping items. Our workshop is being recorded and I will be sending it out later. Please stay on mute so we don't hear feedback, but please feel free to come off mute if you have any questions. And you're free to use the chat function for questions and comments as well. I'll be monitoring it. And there's going to be a Q&A section at the end. Now I would like to introduce Mawerdi Hamid, an attorney general who specializes in bankruptcy, and Judge Fisher with the United States Bankruptcy Court, who also specializes in bankruptcy, and his team, who will lead today's workshop.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mawerdi again, and I am going to be talking to you guys about budgeting. This is going to be my first presentation on Zoom. I don't know if you could tell in the beginning, I was having some technical issues. I'm sure you guys are used to that this year, doing your schools online. But today we're going to be talking about budgeting and what you need to know. I don't know if we can have audience participation. You can unmute yourself and answer a question if you want. I will try to see if there are some questions that we can answer while we're going through the slides. All right. So you just won $1 million. What are you gonna do with it? Can someone like write in the chat or say what they have plans to do if they win $1 million? Do we have any responses? I don't know.
We have invest, pay off debt.
Nice.
Pay off student loans.
That's what a lot of people would say. But we'll talk about today how we can save money. Maybe not $1 million, but hopefully some money. And the reason why budgeting is really important is because it's really part of our life, and a lot of things that we do is dependent on the budget. And as studies show that at least 45% of Americans don't like talking about budgeting and finances. And it's one of the most difficult topics to discuss, including with family members and people that you're close to. And some people even ranked death being less difficult talking about than budgeting. So today we're going to be using an analogy for brushing your teeth. As you can remember, when you're little, your parents taught you how to brush your teeth. And this morning, when you woke up and brushed your teeth, you didn't even think about it. You just woke up and did it. So hopefully today we're going to learn a lot about budgeting to a point where you're going to do it like you brush your teeth every single morning. So what do you need to learn about budgeting? The first is knowledge. You need to know what it is and what you have to do. And the second one is discipline. And this is how you're going to build a discipline for the knowledge that you're going to be learning today so that you can build a very strong budgeting habits, and you can take charge of your finances. And another reason why uh, we teach these classes about budgeting is, like was said earlier, I'm a bankruptcy attorney. Judge Fisher is a bankruptcy judge, and we all work in a bankruptcy field, and we see a lot of people who end up in bankruptcy court. And I don't know if you guys heard about bankruptcy, but it's one of the most difficult decisions someone has to do. That's when your debts are just too much for you to pay, and creditors are calling you every day or coming to your house, trying to try to take your car or your house and things like that. And a bankruptcy is there to provide a relief for people who can't pay off their debt. And a lot of times, if we have a very strong knowledge about budgeting and our finances, it's easier for us to be able to manage our finances, so that, you know, when you guys get older, you don't have to file bankruptcy. So I probably can't see you today because it's different from the classroom presentations, but if you think you're going to be a millionaire, you can stand up. And I'm probably going to get like maybe 5 students out of, you know, 10 or 15. And a lot of people do believe that they're going to do very well financially in the future, and they'd have some plans. And you probably would tell me what your plans are for the future that you would be financially successful. Um, so here is a very simple way that you can think of making money when you get older. And this is combinations of saving money, investing it in, you know, whether it's your retirement account, your IRA, and things like that. But let's say you want to save $1 million when you're 65 years old. And depending on how old you are right now, I'm sure you're definitely in your early teens and not even in your 20s yet. And as you can see on the chart, if you save $2 a day, you could be a millionaire by the time that you're 65 years old. And as you get older, in your early 30s, that money is going to be a little bit more much, like $6.35 a day. So this is the amount of money that you would save every day for you to, in addition to, you know, like compounding interest and things like that, that you would get to that point. And as you get older, you can see that amount of money starts getting bigger. So what this really means is that the earlier you start saving, the earlier you start budgeting, the more successful that you would be when you get to the age of retirement. So how do you build a habit? So how do you build a habit in general, whether it's brushing your teeth or learning a budget? It's you think about what you want to do, and you track how you spend your money and you do this every single time. And you can plan to do this. You can start with at least your budget for a year, and you can go down to 6 months or 3 months, or you can even go down to every single week. What am I spending my money on? Or every single day, am I spending money buying a lot of chocolates, soda, running to the store? Keep track of all of that, write all of that down. And sooner that you realize that you do this as often as possible, you will start to build a habit. So what we need to really understand about finances and money is that money lets us buy things we want and things that we need. And here we'll go through in a little bit more detail about what needs and wants are. And I'll probably try to get some audience participation in this case. Did the screen switch again, or? Okay. So let's look at some things that you probably think are obvious. Food. What do you guys think? Food is a need or a want? And you can just respond in a text in the message, and we'll find out what you guys think. Do you guys think food is a need or a want? I would think it's a need because you need to eat. You probably can't survive if you can't eat. Clothing, it's definitely a need. But then would you need a brand name clothing that you saw your friends wear? Maybe you don't need that. That could be a want, but clothing to keep you warm is a need. A bed, a place to sleep, it's a need. As you guys can see, the difference between a need and um, a want. A haircut, you probably need a haircut, but you probably don't need to get, you know, very expensive haircut or something that you think that you could be okay with. You can try to skip maybe a couple of haircuts if you think that you're spending a lot of money on it. Cell phone. Cell phone, some people think it's a want and some people think it's a need, but at this age, everybody needs to have a phone so that at least for you guys, your parents can know where you're at. But you probably may not need that new cell phone that comes out every single year or every now 6 months or so. That's going to go into the want section. Concert, it could be foreign to us right now because of how long it has been that we had concerts. What do you guys think? I think that's a want because we can definitely live without concerts like we have seen that we could do since March of last year. Same with a watch. It could be a need, but you probably don't need that new iWatch that just came out. You could be okay with the previous versions that you have been using. A university, you going to school is a need in this age. You have to get college education to be able to earn decent income, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here. So everyone sees money differently and budgeting differently, and that is okay. It's not you don't have to budget the same way as everybody does, as your friends do, or even as your parents do, because they have different needs and wants than you are. And what you can't do is you can't just, throw up your hands and say, I don't care, I'm just gonna, you know spend whatever amount of money I have and not care. And like we said earlier about the importance of budgeting and why we need to do it, and the way we do it is by tracking our spending plan and by putting together a money map. And so this is what is going to help us build a budget. So just like I said earlier, with the teeth brushing analogy, that the more you do it, is the better your teeth are, and you can avoid cavity, because you can tell your parents this morning that you did brush your teeth, but if you're going to do that 2-3 days in a row, you are going to be getting cavity, and you can't avoid that. And that is the same analogy for budgeting. And you also need to change your toothbrush and get more floss, and that's the same thing with budgeting too. You need to update your system of budgeting. So how do you create a budget? And this is the simplest way to do it. You write down everything that you do with your money. That is money coming in and money going out, and you track it over a specific amount of time. Like I said earlier, you can either choose a week, a month, 6 months, or a whole year, and you write it down. And you write it down in a way that says, I am getting all of this money in this month. And what are the ways that you think of that money comes in? Like jobs, if you have a salary, or if you get money from some jobs that you have at your age, you probably get money from babysitting, doing some yard work, and things like that. And money going out. And like I said earlier, everybody does money differently, and that's okay. You don't have to have your own way of, you can start your own way of making money. So money coming in, and that's what the people in the financial industry call income, and that's income, that's money that comes in. And then money going out is obviously expenses. These are money that you spend on things like we talked about, whether it's a need or a want. So part-time job, you probably have a babysitting job or any type of jobs that you do around the house. That's an income. That's money that you're getting that's coming in. Some of you may get allowances. Maybe, you know, you don't get in trouble and you get allowances. Some of you may get gifts for birthday, and you put all of that money and you put it together and it will be your income. And a lot of people think that expenses are bad, but when we talk about needs and wants earlier, you can't avoid some of the needs. You have to spend money on some of your needs. And you can't feel bad about spending those money because you have to survive. You have to do those things to buy those things. So I don't want you guys to look at it as a bad thing. But as we will talk in a little bit, there are ways that you can try your expenses and cut your track your expenses so you can cut some of them that you don't need. So what you do is you look at your necessary expenses, things that are a need, a must, like transportation. You need a car when you guys are old enough for that, or a bus pass to get to places, to get to school. You need your cell phone. So you write these things down in an order of necessity. So if you guys don't have a checking or saving account, I'm not sure how old you are. I think once you're getting closer to 12 or 13, I believe you can get your own checking and saving account on your parents, under your parents' accounts. And I think that would be the best way for you to keep track of your budgeting and to put money in your both checking and saving account. That way you can look at your bank account and you can try to track your expenses and your income that way. So when you write down the wants and the needs that I told you guys earlier, what you would do is you would write the needs in the order of importance. So you would write on top what is really important, what you cannot be without. So you write them on the top and then you go down the list to the bottom as things are mostly wants, things that you can get by, that you don't have to buy all the time. And a budget really works if it reflects the reality, and that is your reality. And just like I talked about the cavity earlier, you can't just ignore brushing your teeth and tell your mom that you brushed your teeth. You have to actually do it, because when it comes time to cavity, you can't hide that. It's going to be there. So how do you know whether you're doing budgeting well or not? You add up all of your income, and then on the other side, you add up all of your expenses and you subtract your expenses from your income. And if what you have is a negative, you probably are not doing good. That means you're spending more money than you have. But if your expenses are less than your income, that means you have an ability to save. You can save more money, and you can even plan to try to track your money better that way. So let's look at this individual. So let's say this is an example of a person who has an income. It comes down to his total income is $255, and his total expenses are $322.50. So what do you guys think? Do you think this guy is doing good? I think he has more expenses than income, so he's probably not doing good, and he probably needs this budget class so that he can balance his income and his expenses, correct? So that next time he'll try to see what he wants and needs and cut some expenses out so that he can have some more money to save, right? So what are some of the ways that you can improve your budget? If you have less income, You try to get more income. And how do you do that? You probably get a job, get more money. And the other option is for you to decrease your expenses. And like we talked about earlier, the best way for you to decrease your expenses is to put them in order and cut out the things that you can get by, that you don't have to buy every day. So in general, what we learned today is that money can buy you things that you need and you want. And you start now that you managing money can become a habit, and budget only works when it reflects your reality. And just like brushing your teeth, it's better to start budgeting earlier, and make sure that you make it part of your everyday budget, your everyday practice. And that's all I have for you guys today. And I see Judge Fisher has joined us, and I think we may have David and Whitney too, and we can get into the other parts of the program. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Hamid. And this is I'm Bill Fisher. I'm a federal bankruptcy court judge. Can Ms. Macedo, can you hear me? Raise your hand. Okay. And I know there are a number of you out there, and I'd like to get some questions or comments, whether you do it through the chat screen or whether you do it by just unmuting yourself and commenting. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and I hope some of you'll be able to answer them. So I am first of all, I'm a federal judge. And does anyone out there know what a judge does? Can anyone answer that for me? Anyone unmute and tell me what a judge does? Nobody wants to do that? All right. Well, here we go. No, that's to everyone else. Okay. I don't see anybody. All right. Well, I'll tell you what I do. First of all, I don't always dress like this. I only did that for you today. So I'm wearing a robe. So I wear a costume to work, kind of like the clowns in the circus. They wear costumes too. I wear a costume to work. Now, I know I don't wear it all day. I only wear it when I'm in the courtroom or on a screen where I'm in the courtroom. And you can see here, I'm in the courtroom. There's a seal behind me over here, and that says United States Bankruptcy Court for the District of Minnesota. And I'm in the federal court building, the Warren Burger Federal Court building in downtown St. Paul. That's where I am. And again, if anybody wants to talk and interrupt me at any time, normally we don't like when people interrupt, but here we want you to interrupt me. So if you've got some question or you want to have a comment, please interrupt, and then I'll be happy to answer it. Otherwise, you're just going to hear me talk. Go ahead.
Someone said judges apply the law to the court cases and oversee the legal process in court. I think that's Serpro, Mr. Lee.
Okay, now there's a very smart person. Whoever said that, that was a very smart answer. A lot of people say, and they're not wrong, judges decide things, and that's not a wrong answer. But the answer you gave me, whoever you are, was a very smart answer, because we don't really decide all the cases. What the jury will decide most cases. And so what the judge does is exactly what you said. We tell the law and we interpret the law. Now, some trials, there is no jury, and I decide the facts of the case, which a jury normally does, and I also decide the law. But when I have a jury, the jury decides the facts. In other words, was the red light, was the light red, excuse me, when the car went through it, or was it green, if that's the issue in the case, right? I don't decide that. The jury will decide that question, right? Did you break the window? I don't decide that. The jury decides that question, okay? I can tell the jury what the law is. And so the jury finds out what the law is, but then they go and they meet and they decide, where do we get juries from? Does anybody know? How do I get this jury? Where do they come from? Anybody know? I'm looking at my screen, and it should pop up. And again, if you want to unmute, I know you may not want to do that, but you're welcome to unmute and tell me where we get juries from. Where do juries come from? Well, they're made up of regular people, not lawyers, not judges. They're regular people. And they are chosen because if you get a driver's license or you register to vote, or any way the government has your name, usually it's those two ways, you can serve on a jury. And in fact, if you're called to serve in a jury, you have to do it. You don't have a choice. It's not like I'm too busy. It sounds boring. It's not boring, incidentally, but I don't want to do it. So if you're 18 or over, you have to do it. Now they'll often let you say, okay, I know you're busy right now with this, that, or the other thing. Come back in a few months and we'll try you then. So it's not they're not completely they're not completely inflexible, but jurors are supposed to be regular people. Could be a doctor. It could be somebody who cleans this building at the end of the night. It could be it could be the president of a company. In fact, here's David Trout said, juries are the people in the community. Very good. Excellent. That's right. People in the community, not trained judges. You don't have to have any you don't have to be a college graduate. You don't have to be a law school graduate. You don't have to be a high school graduate. And we want people in the community. That's an excellent answer from Mr. Trout, because we want people in the community, right? Because when now juries decide two different kinds of things. There are two main kinds of cases: criminal cases. That's bad, right? You don't want to be in one of those. And civil cases. Criminal cases means the government is saying you deserve to be punished in some manner, usually locked away, right? Serve some time in a prison. That doesn't sound too good. A civil case doesn't have to be brought by the government. In fact, rarely it is. It's usually brought by an individual. Like if you've ever watched Judge Judy on television, any of you seen that show? That's a civil case. So any one of you could bring a case against somebody else in a civil manner. And all you're asking for, usually, there's always exceptions, but usually all you're asking for is money. You want money. No one's going to go to jail. So if you get in a car accident and somebody else caused the accident and wrecked your car, you want money so you can buy a new car. We're not going to put that person in jail unless they committed a crime when they crashed into you, such as they may have been drinking or something like that. But okay. And so those are two different kinds of trials. Criminal trials, you always have the right, almost always have the right to a jury. Any serious crime, you got the right to a jury. And so no one's going to send you to prison unless jurors, people from the community, decide that you in fact committed the crime. And the jurors have to decide it unanimously, meaning all the jurors have to agree that you're guilty. They all got to agree that. There are normally 12 juries for most types of crimes. So you got 12 jurors. And so there's 12 of them. They all got to agree. And not only do they have to agree that you did it, they have to agree you did it beyond a reasonable doubt. That means there may be a doubt. Maybe the person broke the window, maybe not. It's kind of hard to tell. It could be, but I have my doubts about it. If that's true, then the jury finds not guilty. That doesn't mean innocent, right? That means that you're not guilty. Exactly what that word says, not guilty. If all the jurors agree it's beyond a reasonable doubt, then you're guilty, and then you may have to go to prison or whatever else the penalty might be. Not everyone goes to prison. Sometimes we just supervise them and make sure they don't go to prison. We just make sure they don't do that kind of thing, but we don't make them go to prison. And then a civil case is about money. Now, the kind of judge I am right now, I'm doing all civil. I was a criminal judge in state court about 5 years ago, and there I did all criminal. And you'd rather have a civil case than a criminal case. That's a very bad thing to have to face going to prison. I think you'd all agree that's something we don't want to have to face if we can avoid it. So those are the two kinds of cases that generally come before us. Now, Ms. Hamid has maybe mentioned to you, when you went through this budgeting, one of the reasons you want to really be careful on your budgeting is if you ultimately owe so many people so much money that you can never pay them back, then our federal laws, federal meaning Congress, passed laws saying that you can file for bankruptcy and not have to pay that debt, but you have to turn over your property in exchange for that. Not all your property. You can keep your clothes, in most cases your house, and in most cases your car. So you can keep it in your furniture, but if you got money sitting in a bank, or you got a boat, or you got a second home, or you got to turn that kind of stuff over, and then you don't have to pay your debts. You don't want to file bankruptcy, and that's one of the reasons you want to listen to what Ms. Hamid has told you today. But I handle those kinds of cases. So I handle cases involving people who can't pay their debts, or companies. A lot of my time is spent with companies that are trying to reorganize their debts. And so most of you have run across businesses that have been in bankruptcy, believe it or not. If any of you've gone on a plane, you've been on probably, that plane is probably filed for bankruptcy. That company's filed for bankruptcy at some point in time. If you drive a Dodge or a GM, then you're driving a car that a company that's been in bankruptcy. So a lot of companies been through bankruptcy, they reorganize, and that's kind of what I do. Plus individuals who cannot pay their debts. And the reason, why do you think we have those laws? Why do you think we want to let people off their debts if they turn over, what they don't need, in essence, other than their necessities? Why do you think we pass laws like that? Does anybody have any idea? Why does Congress think it's a good idea to let people off their debts? Anyone? I'll answer it myself in a minute, but I'll give you a second to think about it. What would be the advantage? Ms. Hamid has an answer. Go ahead.
Because we don't want to send people to jail for not being able to pay their debts.
Yeah, and we never do that. We never say. They used to do that, by the way. And that makes no sense. Any of you ever read Charles Dickens? Any books by him? He wrote Christmas Carol. And he spent time when he's a kid in debtor's prison because his parents couldn't pay their debts. It makes no sense. If you're sitting in prison, how are you going to work to pay your debts? It's impossible. So that doesn't work. We don't do that anymore. But what Ms. Hamid also means is that if you owe that money the rest of your life, it's almost like being in prison. You can't really live very well if people are trying to take everything you earn all the time. And we don't want people to be so burdened with debt that they cannot really function. And that's why it's so important here. And we got somebody here, how COVID has affected bankruptcy. Oh, there's an interesting question. So how has COVID affected bankruptcy? That's a very good question. You are really coming up with great questions. Now, how many of you think, I can't see you raise your hands, okay? But I can only see 2 people. But how many of you think that COVID has caused a lot more bankruptcies because people have lost their jobs and can't pay their bills? I see a yes from David Trout again, and I'm bet we're going to see a lot of yeses. Believe it or not, you know what the answer is right now as we speak? Was someone trying to answer? I saw a screen come on. Go ahead. Did you? Okay, maybe just watching. Okay, the answer is no. We've seen less bankruptcies. Now, wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. People have lost their jobs. People are unable to pay their rent because of COVID, right? People can't make their car payments. Wouldn't that cause more bankruptcies? They can't pay their credit card bills. They can't, through no fault of their own, right? Through no fault of their own. Here's why. Right now, the government is saying people don't have to pay their mortgages. People don't have to pay their rent. Some do, but general rule. And so there are all these, the government has put all these policies in place so that people are able to not pay that without having to file bankruptcy. But the government doesn't say you never have to pay it. And at some point, the government's going to say, okay, COVID is over. Now you got to start paying those bills. And when that happens, the courtroom I'm sitting in right now will be really crowded because the people who have built up all these debts over time they're now going to have to pay them. So ironically, right now, we're not seeing as many people file bankruptcy, but I think we're going to see it in the fall or next winter, depending on when these moratoriums meaning you don't have to pay, finally goes away because people are going to have to do it. How about college loans? I got a question there. What a great, boy, we're getting good questions. What about college loans? Well, that's a really interesting question these days. The general rule right now, as we sit here today, is if I have a whole lot of college loans, that's a whole nother topic that Ms. Hamid could talk to you about for an hour. That's very interesting. You really want to make sure you keep your college loans as low as possible. And there are a lot of ways to do that. And you can talk, we don't have enough time today to talk to you about that, but a lot of it involves getting scholarships where you can and going to schools that don't charge as much and things like that. How do high schools prepare for college? I'll get to that in a minute, that next question. But so people have a lot of college debt, right? A lot of people have a very high debt. If you went to medical school, for example, your debt might be really high. On the other hand, you're a doctor. Maybe you can pay that money back. So that works that way. But what if you have a lot of debt and you're in a job that doesn't pay too well? Then you've got some trouble. Bankruptcy really doesn't help you much with that because they say you can only get out of those debts if you file bankruptcy if it's an undue hardship to pay that back. Really meaning, boy, if you're disabled or something like that, possibly that you don't have to pay them back. But what's interesting right now is I don't know how this is going to come out, but the new president And some members of Congress are proposing that the president cancel student loans, maybe up to $10,000 or maybe even up to $50,000. So that means everyone who has a debt out there all of a sudden doesn't have to pay back 10,000 or 50,000. Will that work? Will he need Congress to agree with him? I'm not sure about all that. That's politics, and we'll see how that goes. And it also means, by the way, if that sounds great, right? All these people don't have to pay the money back, but that means the taxpayers are going to have to pay that money back. So in essence, so I'm not taking a side. I'm just saying there's two sides to the story. That's all I'm saying. It's not it's not completely free. That's all I'm saying. It may be a very good idea. That's up for you as potential voters to decide and as citizens to decide, not me. But for politicians, they have to think about, yeah, we can do that. On the other hand, the government ends up sort of taking that bill on. So they got to kind of balance those two things off. What a good question. And I got another one there and I forgot what it said about high school technical college. Yeah, that's what it was. I think the point of that question was, one way to keep your student loan debts low is think about what you want to do for a career and what kind of school you need to go to, because you may be able to go to a technical college or a 2-year college and get a very good degree in something that will earn you a lot of money. You may need to go to a 4-year school, but can you go to a 2-year school first? That's much cheaper, and then transfer to a 4-year school like the University of Minnesota, and now just pay for 2 years of that. But guess where your degree is from? The University of Minnesota. So employers see University of Minnesota. Can you get free money, scholarships? So you want to, when you hopefully you're all going to go to college or some kind of post high school, and when you do that, you want to think very carefully about how much it's going to cost and that sort of thing, because it's very expensive these days, and you can't count on the president 20 years from now saying you don't have to pay back some of those loans. The president 20 years from now may not say that at all. So you have to be you have to assume that could be an issue later on. Any other questions, I'll take them, but I'll just keep talking here otherwise until I see a question. And of course, I'm happy to answer it. So those are some bankruptcy issues. Now I'm still talking about what judges do and how the legal system works. And we have federal, here's a question, and it is out-of-state colleges. Very good point. Someone's making that out-of-state colleges are more expensive. That's an excellent point. In-state, right now, the University of Minnesota, don't quote me on this, tuition is around 15 to 16,000. If somebody knows precisely, you can tell me. If you live in Minnesota, and we have some states like Wisconsin and North Dakota where you pay that same rate in Wisconsin or North Dakota. So you can go to the University of Wisconsin or any of those other schools in Wisconsin and pay the same rate you'd pay here. But if you go to the university, I'm just making this up, Arizona, for example, they're going to charge you a lot more because you don't live in Arizona. Unless they give you some free money, you're going to pay a lot more to go to the University of Arizona. Nice and sunny there, right? It'd be nice to be today. It'd be really nice to be sitting in Tucson, Arizona, I bet, but more expensive. Someone says, I feel like the system forces students to go to an in-state college. What do you think? Yeah, I think that there's some truth to that, except that, again, with that one exception, that say forces you because it's too expensive to go to another public school from a different state, or our private schools are even more expensive than, say, going to the University of Arizona. Going to Harvard, for example, would cost you, if you don't get help, it would end up costing you $50,000 a year or more. I don't know these days. It could be 50 to 70,000 when all's said and done per year. So yeah, in some ways, the money, if you can't get financial aid and you keep your loans low enough and you can't get free money, yeah, you maybe you're sort of forced to say, gee, I could have gone to that private school in New England or wherever, and now I've really, because of financial things, I really got to stick to University of Minnesota or Metro State or whichever school it might be. So there is some truth to that. But remember, if you really wanted to leave our state, you could think about, well, Wisconsin is the same price as going here. Now you got to find a place to live there. Of course, you can't live at home, and unless you go to University of Wisconsin River Falls, maybe, or somewhere like that. But otherwise, you can't live at home and go to North Dakota State University. But it's but there are these states that have the same price as here. So you're not completely pushed into staying here. Plus, again, a lot of money, a lot of those other state schools will give you money sometimes to make it because they want you to go there. They'll sometimes make it the same price you would have paid here because they're going to give you the difference. Did you want to?
Judge,
Go ahead.
I think like the reason why state colleges are less expensive is because the state wants the students to get educated here and
Yeah.
enter the workforce here instead of going to the big cities. They want to keep the smart people here, right?
Yeah, that's part of it. And I think that's an important reason why, don't you think? And I think another reason why is, well, you live here, you pay taxes here, so we give you an advantage here, right? We make you pay less because you or your parents or, people have been paying taxes here as well. And you can also, by the way, just one other last point on how to keep your school costs lower. A lot of you are, I don't know if a lot of you are in high school yet. I think most of you are 8th graders, if I recall, but maybe I'm wrong. If you're in high school, I apologize. But either way, you can get, when you're in high school, you can do a lot of classes that will give you credit for college, that the colleges will accept as credit. Some of those are advanced placement. And in fact, many high schools actually have programs where you can go to the University of Minnesota and take a class there that will actually count toward your toward that. And so I see another point I'll make here in a second. It says to everyone about cost of living is expensive too, which is absolutely true. But again, a school like Metro State is Metro State or Bemidji State, or they're even cheaper than the University of Minnesota, and they all have, and all those schools are our so-called state schools, right? Minnesota State at Moorhead or whichever, or at not Moorhead, that's the wrong example. Mankato, St. Cloud State, those schools. They're excellent schools, and a lot of them have very good programs in various various fields, and they're cheaper yet than University of Minnesota. So there are a lot of different options you have to keep it cheaper, rather than just say, I'm going to go to a place that charges $50,000 a year and take out a lot of loans, and then find yourself graduating with $100,000 in loans and paying those back for many, many years. That is not something you want to get yourself into if you can avoid it. And you can avoid it if you think those things through very carefully when you're thinking about going to post high school education. And then one question is about taking out student loans. Should you take the full amount out being offered? Again, you have to take out what you need to get through school, but a lot of people take out more than they need. And Ms. Hamid talked to you about needs and wants. And she and I can both give you examples of people that went to college, got student loans, and spent the money on trips to Mexico, for example. Well, we all like to go to Mexico tonight if we could. It's freezing cold around here, but you're borrowing to do that. You got to pay that back with interest, and interest means you got to pay more than you took out in the loan. So once again, I think you want to be really careful on that. The main point is you don't want to end up here in front of me someday in a bankruptcy, right? You want to try, and sometimes you can't help it. COVID is a good example. Things can happen to you in life that causes you not to be able to pay your bills, and you can't help that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say student loan is also one of the debts that are not going to be discharged in
Yeah,
bankruptcy, or
that's right.
very difficult to discharge in bankruptcy.
Yeah, as I said earlier, it's got to be an undue hardship, like you're disabled or something like that. But here, you want to avoid this coming here, and you can. And again, we can't help those terrible things that can happen in life. COVID's one of those, right? That we can't do much about that. If COVID affected you worse than other people, maybe you can't pay your bills, and that's just not your fault. Medical conditions, not your fault. But you want to keep your debts low enough so if one of those terrible things happens, that you can even still manage it then, even then. And here, I'll be graduating next year, and I'm worried about college loans and debt. And whoever wrote that, yeah, you're already one step ahead of a lot of people. Why is that? Because you said, I'm worried about it, and that means you're thinking about it, and that's the critical thing. Once you're worried about it and you think about it and you talk to people that can help you with it, all your schools have counselors or people that can help you. And if not, there are programs out there. My niece was one of them who worked with students all all over trying to help them get money and think about colleges and how to get money for that and explain that to them. There are people out there that can help you, and you want to get help with that and make the decision that makes sense rather than just make a decision and not have considered the other options. I mentioned earlier, one option is if you go to, say, Normandale for 2 years and transfer to the University of Minnesota, that Normandale 2 years is going to cost you a lot less money than the University of Minnesota will for those 2 years. Again, Metro State, Bemidji State, uh, those schools, again, charge less than the University of Minnesota. So, and even then you could try to get scholarship funds to help offset that, because someone pointed out if you're not living at home, living expenses for college can be quite high as well. You got to pay rent and you got to get food. And there are also ways you can get jobs, of course, at the universities or nearby that can help you pay for some of those expenses. So there are ways to offset that also. But I think whoever wrote that about, I'm worried about it, you're one step ahead of a lot of people out there. You should be worried about it. That shouldn't prevent you from going to college or whatever it is you want to do post high school. Don't let it worry you so much that you don't do it. You can do it, and you can do it minimizing the debt as low as possible and still getting a good degree and a good job when you get out. And part of it is, I think part of that is also making sure you know what you want to do when you get out, and picking a job, picking some kind of area of education that you think that will lead to you getting a job that you'll be able to make money with, but also if you do have debts, be able to pay those back. So you have to think through those kinds of things and talk to your counselors and look online and really research that decision and use the resources available to make those decisions. Very important. Very good comments on that. Are there any other questions for me on anything, including it's interesting we ended up talking about this so much, which is great, about what I do or about college loans or any of that sort of thing. And there are a lot of strange scholarships out there. If you research them, you'll find them. And you can get $500 or $1,000 sometimes from some of those, and that's real money. That'll pay for a lot. You pay for your books, and so very important to look for those things. Ms.
Judge,
Hamid, you want to go ahead?
I was just gonna add there, I saw something about the University of Minnesota offering a free tuition for certain students that may qualify.
Well,
I
I
think,
think there's a policy out there. There's a proposal. I don't know if
oh,
it's
I
been
don't,
enacted, and maybe it has, for anyone with their income,
yeah,
families whose income is below $50,000 a year may be able to go to school for free.
yeah,
Now,
you
I'm not
should
sure
look
that's been
into that.
enacted.
Yeah, you should look into that, Andre. You see, to see if you
Yep.
can qualify or if it's gonna be effective sometime when you're in school or
Yeah,
something.
by next year that may be in place. I'm not sure where that stands. In other words, whether it's been actually enacted yet or not, or whether they're
Sure.
thinking about it. I can't remember, but that would be a very very good for people with lower income to get that just free education. And obviously they'd have to adjust for people making just above that amount, 50,000 a year, so that they would pay less. I assume they would have a graduated kind of thing. But even then, even if they don't do that, there are a lot of scholarship and grant money available for people who cannot afford school, whose families do not have a lot of income for paying for college. There are a lot of programs out there for that. And you say you'll look into it and see if it's in motion. Yeah, you can Google that and see where that stands probably by looking at that. And here's somebody's pointing out there's so many scholarships, and there really are. There's so many scholarships. You're pointing that out, Cassie. This is my case. Yeah, there's so many scholarships. It's unbelievable. I never knew there were so many till I looked online for some of these things, until my kids went to school and they looked online, and there are a lot of them, and some of them are really strange. I mean, we've seen some only redheads can get them, or only somebody over 6 feet tall. I mean, really, really odd things, but there are a lot out there, and you may qualify for some of those. And maybe your heritage, your background, there may be some for, that somebody set up a scholarship to help people that have come from similar backgrounds that they have. So there's a lot out there. If you look and get people to help you look, you can find some of these, apply for them. My wife does work in that area, and she is amazed that they have, she works with charities and foundations, and she's told me they have some where nobody applies for the money. They have money, it's out there, they put it out, and nobody applies for the money. So there's money out there. You have to do a little work, though. You have to find it. It's not going to come to you. You've got to do the looking. Now I can't remember. We done it.
Yeah,
I can go more, but I think we're supposed to be done at 2. Isn't that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Are there any when in that case it's 2 o'clock, but does anyone have any questions before we sign off here? Any comments or questions? Just says thank you, everyone. Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'll just add this. Let me add one thing. If anyone's interested in observing what we do here in court, and right now everything's online, on the phone, or doing what we're doing right now. So, but that doesn't mean you can't listen in or Zoom in if we're doing a Zoom thing. I'm going to give you a phone number to call, our court phone number. Feel free to call us and ask if you can observe or find out what we do here. If you're interested in a legal career or anything like that, 651-848-1060. That's 651-848-1060. Call that number and say that you attended this session and you're interested in learning about court or whatever you're interested in, and we'll try to do that. With that, goodbye, everybody, and thank you all very much for thank you, Ms. Hamid, and
Thank you, Judge.
for doing that. Everybody, good luck with everything this year, and thank you for attending today. I'll sign off then, unless somebody wants me to stay on.
All right. Bye.
Okay, goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.